Hey everybody, and welcome to our True Image YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my personal reflection out of our newest book, Walking in Your True Image. And today we're going to be talking about being immovable. Over in 1 Corinthians 15:58, it says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, be steadfast, immovable, always excelling in the Lord's work, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." The New Living Translation says that nothing that you do for the Lord is ever useless. Be strong in being immovable. And so when it comes to us walking in our purpose, the enemy is going to come after you. It's like you take that first step and the enemy comes swinging. You take another step, he comes and he swings even harder. And I believe there's a disconnect in us knowing what we're called to do and actually walking in it. Simply because when we start progressing, we start moving forward, the enemy starts pushing back and he pushes back even harder. That's why it is so important that we know if I'm going to walk in my purpose, I'm going to have to determine before I go into this that I'm going to be immovable, that I'm not going to be easily altered by my circumstances, by my feelings. I'm not going to be moved by what other people are or aren't doing. I'm not going to be moved by what I'm doing or by what I'm not doing, because a lot of times we can just feel like we're not doing enough, or we can feel like I'm doing way too much. Bottom line is, Lord, ask the Lord, Lord, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I doing what you want me to be doing? Because I'm still human and I can get intimidated by what other people are doing. I can feel sometimes belittled. I can feel sometimes what I'm doing is not enough. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing, and I know I'm doing way too much, but then it's that, well, maybe I'm still not doing enough. So there's always this battle of we just never feel like we're doing enough for the Lord, and especially through social media. I personally have to take periodic breaks because I have to keep my heart right. I don't want to allow the enemy from what I see to make me feel like, man, I'm not doing anything. And for some people, like, you may laugh at that, but for some of us, like me, that can be a real struggle. And so I have to get off of it for a while, get my focus back. So when I come out of my social media fast or being off social media for a time, that I'm so focused that it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing or isn't doing, I'm staying the course to do what God's called me to do. And that just comes to being so firmly rooted and established on what God has called you to do. I was on the phone talking with a friend of mine the other day, and I was just sharing with her some things that God's doing in my life. She was sharing some things that God's doing in her life. And we were just telling each other, we are in our lane. Stay in your lane. And she would, encourage me that from time to time. Girl, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. And it's so important that we stay in our lane and that we're not going to be moved by anything else, and that we are only moved by what God told us to do. Because listen, remember, man didn't call you, God did. So you don't want to be so easily moved by what other people are doing or what other people aren't doing. Get in your prayer closet. Stay on your face if you have to. Stop doing certain things, or, and part of that's being disciplined. Sometimes you can't, when people are trying to lose weight or people are trying to eat better, we can't crucify them because they're making changes when maybe that's not something that you're being convicted of in certain areas of your life. So whether it's you or whether it's other people, I just want to encourage you, be mindful about what you say to other people, because whether it's in a spiritual growth, whether it's in a personal growth, whether it's in something that people are trying to grow in emotionally in their soul, when people, like some people have to make really drastic changes in their lives in order to get where they believe that they need to go. And it's the same way in our lives concerning spiritual things. If I have to cut out certain things because it's making me unhealthy, it might not affect other people the way it affects me. And so I just want to encourage you, get alone with the Lord. Ask the Lord, what are some distractions? What are some things that keep tripping me up? Over in Hebrews 12, it talks about, let us throw aside the weight, the sin, those things that so easily entangle us. And it's not always sinful things. It can be weights. It can be distractions. Whatever you have to do to stay focused, to stay immovable on your calling and on your purpose and your path that God has for you, I encourage you to do it. It's not silly. It's not ridiculous. Don't allow people to make you feel like, oh my gosh, like you're such a weak Christian. You're having to cut that out. Like that's so stupid. I've had people say that to me. It's like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not on your level yet. I'm sorry I have not, that I have to do certain things in order for me and my insecurities or to deal with whatever I have to deal with so I can be focused on what God's called me to do. So when it comes to you being immovable, get God's vision, get God's purpose for your life, and stick to that. God will never advance you past your last act of obedience to Him. And so if God's asking you to do something, if He's asking you to let go of something, if He's asking you to sit, if He's asking you to wait, part of that immovable, sometimes that means that you're going to go. Sometimes that means that you're going to go full speed. Sometimes it means you got to slow down. And sometimes it means you're going to sit. You're going to sit for a season. You're going to sit for a while because that's what the Lord's instructions to you are. And I just want to encourage you, again, get with the Lord. Don't allow if you're in a sitting season, because I feel like in a lot of ways I'm kind of in this sitting season. I'll talk about that in my personal reflections in our next one on ministry. But I feel like I'm in a very different season right now, and I've never been here before. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, but bottom line, I know that I'm doing what God told me to do. And so even if you feel like you're not doing so much, stay immovable. Stay the course. Don't allow yourself to be like a pinball machine, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because it says in James, a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. Don't allow anything or anyone, yourself included, or even the lies of the enemy to try to trip you up to make you feel like, you're not doing enough, or your move, you need to make this move when God's told you to stay. That's one of the worst things to do is what God's told you to do, but you want to get ahead of Him and ahead of the process and wind up making a bigger mess of things simply because you weren't obeying what God told you to do. So bottom line, being immovable in your convictions and being immovable in God's purpose for your life is to do what God told you to do, not what your feelings tell you, not what other people tell you, not even what circumstances tell you. Because if you really look in the Word of God, God has told people all throughout the Word of God, Old and New Testament, to do some pretty ridiculous things that did not make sense. But the key is, are you going to be obedient? So be immovable in your convictions, be immovable in your purpose. And I pray for you that you are going to walk in the fullness of all that God's called you to be as you walk in your purpose.